Playing online blackjack and want to try upping your odds? Well, here's a tip. Cheat cards tell you statistics for whether you hit or stand on every move. If you're into stats, this could be your ticket to winning. And it is totally legal. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
The Giants are probably going to open up 1-5 on the season. So then you start to say the fans are getting angry. They just want to see Dart. The ownership's like, hey, you know what? Maybe we'd make the right move with Russ here. But then you have self-preservation mode with the general manager and the head coach where it almost seems like it's inevitable. Midway through the season, it's going to have to be Jackson Dart. Otherwise, what are we doing, Giants?
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
It should be illegal for Scottie Scheffler to play on the PGA Tour. This guy can't be stopped. Another victory at the BMW Championship. He has a chip on the 17th, which will go down in the history books. 82 feet, landed 60 feet short, and then rolled the rest of the way. Super exciting win again for Scheffler, who is not only the best golfer in the world, he's becoming one of the best golfers of all time.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
It doesn't matter that they're early in the game, late in the game, they're trailing, they're leading. It doesn't matter, garbage time. CeeDee Lamb is the guy, and we saw that even after Dak got hurt last year and Cooper Rush was under center. Targets were going to CeeDee Lamb. And when you can get 9, 10, 12, 15 targets on a game-by-game basis, he's going to rack up fantasy points every single week. Frankly, he underperformed last year.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Is Dave Portnoy banned by Ohio State ahead of Fox's Big Noon kickoff? Plus, are we headed for a lockout in the WNBA? Hi, everyone, and welcome to Front Office Sports Today from FOS Studios here in New York City. I'm Baker Machado.
And I'm Renee Washington, and thank you guys so much for joining us as each and every weekday we chat the biggest stories in the business and culture of sports. We also have the latest NFL roster moves ahead of the deadline to trim. But first, let's dive right into the shoot-around.
Yeah, indeed, Renee. And let's start with the long-awaited announcement of Caitlin Clark becoming Nike's newest signature athlete. That is, the Fever star unveiled her new signature logo and even hyped her planned signature sneaker that's going to debut sometime in 2026. Now, Clark's logo features interlocking C's with a smaller hidden C that Clark says is, quote, more than just a logo, it's a dream come true. Now, certain apparel items will be available starting in September, and Clark joins fellow Nike athletes Asia Wilson and Sabrina Ionescu as active WNBA players with their own signature sneaker. We've been waiting for this logo. What's the first response?
We've been waiting 84 years. No, Caitlin Clark's signature logo being released on the back of a pickup truck that was driving down a dirt road is very on brand. And also, when we saw the Kobe Bryant signature shoes that got released in June that had the Fever's colors and sold out within a matter of minutes, it made sense that Nike was going to push to get her signature logo to drop soon. It was only a matter of time. And as you mentioned, as she joined Sabrina Ionescu and Asia Wilson, and well-deserved, she took so much time in planning this, was heavily involved. And there's so many details. The big C's that they said are focused on her connection with fans around the globe. Right. That hidden C, she said, is about her passion and about how she was built from the inside out in terms of her game. So they really had a very meticulous, detailed plan for what this logo looks like. And now we get to wait for the apparel.
And we know these rollouts are really important to get them right. And she is such a big star that you have to get this logo right. And I think it's cool. It's sort of like almost a nod to nostalgia almost.
I agree. So now we get the logo t-shirt available September 1st in North America, and the rest of her apparel collection will drop October 1st according to Nike. So now we just wait until we get to see more.
Well, the NCAA and Venmo have joined forces to combat abuse and harassment of college athletes by sports bettors. Venmo says they'll create a dedicated hotline for athletes to report abuse and will also have their security team monitor social media trends and events that could trigger surges in requests for payment from gamblers who lost a bet related to that particular athlete. The NCAA says close to 20% of online abuse and harassment, Renee, directed at college athletes on social media, all connected to sports betting.
And that 20% is 20 too many. I know the NCAA has been very big, even going back to March Madness for the men's and women's tournament. They launched a Draw the Line campaign, and then they had a video of Don't Be a Loser to really attack, making and combat, I should say, online harassment for their student athletes. So this is the next step of that. Venmo has been a space that we've seen gamblers especially trying to get players to tip them on availability and injuries in response for payment, bribing them, and also even following up on games looking to request money for them. So it's college athletes and professional athletes, and I know for the NCAA they're saying they're hoping this is the start that maybe even like social media and others may follow up on.
Yeah, meanwhile, millions of YouTube TV customers could find themselves without access to Fox channels this weekend, as YouTube TV says that it is actively negotiating with the broadcaster in hopes of reaching an agreement by August the 27th. Now, if Fox content is unavailable on the platform, that would mean Fox Sports, FS1, Big Ten Network, and even coverage of Ohio State and Texas on Saturday would be unavailable for YouTube TV subscribers. Now, YouTube TV says if an agreement isn't reached, Renee, subscribers would be given a $10 credit, but I don't know if a lot of Ohio State or Texas people that would be happy with that if they miss it.
Or football fans, what's a $10 credit when instead of being able to watch Arch Manning and Texas take on the reigning champions in Ohio State, instead you're getting a $10 credit.
Right.
But it is wild because YouTube has come out and said that Fox is looking for too much money. They said that compared to what other partners are receiving, it is a wide difference in terms of what they're offering. So if Fox is unable to come down on that money, you mentioned August 27th is tomorrow.
Yep.
Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern time is when that blackout would start, and then the credit would be given. But this is messy, especially with the 8 million subscribers plus that watch YouTube TV.
And on the topic of that Texas-Ohio State game over on Fox, the new Fox Barstool college football partnership has drama even before the first game, as Front Office Sports can report that Ohio State has barred Barstool and its founder Dave Portnoy from entering Ohio Stadium. That ahead of the school's opening matchup against Texas on Saturday. That's also airing on Fox. So let's take a look at this in our main event. Let's bring in the reporter that broke this scoop, FOS Media and Entertainment reporter Ryan Glasspiegel. So Ryan, what do we know right now about this?
Well, first of all, we know that this could only happen in college football where there's so many different fiefdoms and no centralized power. And so, yeah, as you mentioned in the introduction, I reported last night that Ohio State banned Dave Portnoy from entering the stadium for Big Noon kickoff on Saturday and banned the Barstool College Football Show from taping on campus before Big Noon kickoff in Columbus. Now, here's what we know. Yesterday, Bobby Carpenter and Austin Ward, who host a show in Columbus, said that people were not happy about Portnoy joining Big Noon and that he's not welcome in the Horseshoe. I did some follow-up reporting and figured out, yes, they did ban him. Now, this morning, Ohio State's athletic director, Ross Bjork, said Portnoy was not barred and that this was a Fox decision. Ohio State also sent us a statement on that grounds. Portnoy released a video saying, they did ban me, they did ban the Barstool Show, and I feel bad because Fox is in the middle of it.
Wow, so a lot of back and forth here. And as you mentioned, Portnoy himself admitting he has been banned. What has Fox said about all of this? And I'm curious if they even knew about this ban in terms of a timeline with having this partnership with Barstool Sports and Portnoy coming to Big Noon.
Well, certainly they knew that Portnoy, as a Michigan man, has had his rivalry with Ohio State, and I think that they knew that there was going to be a fair share of controversy. As Portnoy alluded to, they're in a rough spot because Fox is the primary TV partner of the Big Ten. Ohio State, they're the defending national champions. They're the biggest school in the Big Ten. I mean, them and Michigan. And so they brought in this big partnership with Barstool, and then Ohio State, they probably expected Ohio State to be livid about it, but Ohio State was maybe more livid about it than Fox expected. And so the kinks are still getting worked out, and we have this predicament that we're in.
And wouldn't we also know, based off of, Barstool's history and Dave Portnoy's history, that Fox knew exactly what they'd be getting themselves into with this partnership? I guess, does Fox sort of lean into this as sort of a thing that helps them with the ratings to combat how good ESPN's college game day coverage is?
Yeah, I mean, I think in some ways this might be construed as a positive for Fox because this is a big weekend. They are in Columbus. ESPN's college game day is in Columbus. It's Lee Corso's final date on game day. And so now all of a sudden people are talking about this Fox show in relation to this controversy. And I think it's giving a lot more people who didn't necessarily, follow everything in the media awareness that Portnoy and Barstool are going to be affiliated with this show.
It does add a little extra with the drama, but it makes me wonder, will we see Dave Portnoy at all in any capacity? Like, how does this, the band seems definite.
He's going to be on the show in the first hour. He just will not be on the show once they enter into the stadium.
Interesting. And just from Ohio State's perspective, there's been obviously a lot of outcry on social media that maybe Ohio State went too far in this. Is this a situation that maybe comes back and bites Ohio State here?
Well, I think, just based on the fact that they're saying, no, there was no ban, don't blame us, look at Fox, it shows that they're sensitive to the criticism that they're getting.
Okay, so we know that week 1, Ohio State has banned Dave Portnoy, but do you expect other schools, especially Big Ten schools, to follow in their footsteps?
So the Big Ten gave a statement to Yahoo Sports saying that it's their understanding that Portnoy will not be on the main desk inside the stadium the rest of the season in the Big Ten. I would say the main desk, or I think he said main stage actually, is doing a lot of work there because maybe he will be on the show but not on the desk, or maybe this will be changed later. But I haven't done any follow-up reporting on that. That is just what the Big Ten said in a statement to a different outlet.
Wow, and the college football season, the drama already getting exciting for this Saturday. Ryan Glasspiegel, thank you so much. You can find updates on this story for Ryan's story on frontofficesports.com. And next up, everyone, the October 31st deadline between the WNBA and the Players Union is ticking closer and closer. So could we have a strike? We'll get to that next.
This is the moment every fan waits for. The countdown's over. The road to kickoff has begun.
Play is here to stay. I'm not going to name names, Kevin.
From win totals to player props, from division races to MVP debates, we've got eyes on every camp and data feeding 24/7, breaking down every angle across the league. Every pick, every edge, every line that matters. SportsGrid. Your road to kickoff starts now.
They're saying that he might be back for the start of the playoffs, but their playoff spot isn't secure with the Mariners bearing down on them and the wild card completely in flux. So this is like borderline red alert because the pitching staff has not been good. We have not seen good stuff from Framber Valdez. So now that the back end of the bullpen is not good, I don't know what to make of it.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Answer is this. 12-team, 3 wide receiver, you take Jamar Chase. In a 10-team league, though, where you have only 2 wide receivers to start, it's an interesting supply and demand situation with a roster like that. That is where the Bijan number 1 overall maybe comes into play, because you could take Bijan and then turn around. You're still getting 2 number 1 wide receivers in a 10-team league draft.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
The young Goddard angle too had the added PR campaign of like, do you want to take a New York and or a Jersey guy to play a New York Ryder Cup? Like the crowd juice there is going to be off the charts.
They would love. They would kill for him.
Chris Goddard like making a big putt, like popping the chain to the Bethpage crowd. Are you kidding me? There's some of these guys I just want to pick them because I want the visual, I want the memory.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today with Renee Washington and Baker Machado. Well, the WNBA and the Players Association just have over 60 days to agree to a new historic collective bargaining agreement. But according to Front Office Sports, and we can exclusively report that October 31st deadline likely would have to have an extension. So for more on this, let's bring in our women's sports reporter, Annie Costable, who broke this story. So Annie, where do things currently stand right now between the league and the union?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think a lot of us on the inside, this was the expectation, right? Just based on both conversations and what came out of All-Star Weekend. The assumption, was that an extension would likely be necessary, similar to 2019, both because of what was alluded to about the conversations and that they were not super productive. But then also Commissioner Kathy Engelbert mentioned herself that if they are engaged in productive conversations, an extension could be possible. And so at this point, that's what sources are indicating, is that an extension is one of the possibilities if they are, again, unable to get to that agreement by the October 31st deadline. And the thing is, that's coming up super quick. So again, pointing to history, 2019, when they were in talks to ratify the CBA they're currently that they're currently existing in, that took an extra 60 days for them to get to that ratification of that CBA. So it's not unheard of for an extension to occur.
Absolutely. And Annie, I'm curious, what is the union saying about the current state of the CBA negotiations?
Yeah, I mean, what they stressed in their statement, Terry Carmichael Jackson talked about in her statement, was that there's a lack of urgency from the WNBA's side. That's what the union feels, and they're questioning whether or not the WNBA is attempting to run out the clock, is exactly what the union's statement said. And in a follow-up, the league communicated that, you know, they've made it clear to the union, but just in case it's unclear to anybody else, they're engaged in conversations with the union that they feel are productive. And they're stressing that the priority for them is to get an agreement in place that is one the players can be satisfied with, but also lends itself to the further development and growth and productivity of the league. And so when you hear a statement like that, right, it points to the fact that they are clearly at odds over certain aspects, because again, the league is saying we want to make the players happy, but, and so that but is a big but.
Well, let's talk about that but, because this is coming on the heels of record attendance. We're getting record ratings for the WNBA this last season, and the players clearly feel motivated to get a transformative deal. If the league wants to run out the clock, how bad would this be given where things are at with the league right now if there is a labor shortage and there's a strike here?
Yeah, so that's the important distinction, right, to be made. There's a difference between a strike and a lockout. A strike is prompted by the union. A lockout is prompted by the league and owners. A lockout is exactly what it says as it is. It's ownership locking the players out of the league and the facilities, et cetera. And so when it comes to this October 31st deadline, the reason why you would need an extension is because there would need to be a CBA in place even while you're negotiating for a new one. Because again, when you talk about players using facilities, even though it's the off season, I saw someone question about, you know, well, by October 31st, the season will be over. That's true, but you still have to have language in place that, again, protects both sides, right? You still have to be operating under an existing contract, regardless of whether the season's in place or not. So that's an important note to make. But then when it comes to what the actual but is, again, to your question, it's that revenue sharing. That's going to be the hang up. And it's going to be the biggest point of emphasis in these negotiations, because again, to your point, as attendance skyrockets, as viewership skyrockets, as these expansion fees continue to skyrocket, the players have indications, have factual information that they're looking at that backs up their argument for, again, a transformational revenue sharing model. To that same point, the league is emphasizing we need to make decisions that continues the success of the league, that doesn't halt it here. And so I think until they can get closer in terms of what benefits both sides, these statements from both sides are going to read as we're at odds.
Now, as you have mentioned, in 2019, we saw the extension for the CBA. 2003, we saw the delay that did impact a slight delay around the start of preseason and the draft itself. The WNBA has never lost games truly to a work stoppage. In your opinion, Annie, will this deal get done, or is the WNBA headed for a lockout?
I think it's too early to speculate about whether or not they're headed to a work stoppage. I think what's important to emphasize here is that both sides are very committed to getting a CBA ratified ahead of the 2026 season. And we obviously know that expansion is on the table too. And so both parties understand what's at stake here in terms of the further development, progress, growth of the WNBA. And no one wants to see that halted by, again, a work stoppage. However, when you're in negotiations, again, when you're part of a union, and the leverage is important, right? And the players feel that they have leverage. And so they've said, we're going to stay at the bargaining table as long as it takes for us to get a transformational CBA ratified. And so a work stoppage, you can't take it off the table. It's just a little early to commit to that actually being the outcome here.
Annie, in the 40 seconds we have left with you, you're in Chicago where Candace Parker got her jersey retired by the Sky. You talked to her. What was this moment like for her?
Yeah, I mean, this is her second jersey retirement, guys. Her jersey went up in the rafters in LA as well. And so when you think about the fact that it's happened to 2 franchises, it really speaks to her impact both on the court and off of it. And that's what really stood out to me in the conversations I not only had with her, but her former teammates and coaches as well, is just she impacted the game. She was a transformational, historic player, but she also impacted the way players saw themselves off the court and their business endeavors off the court. So that's what really stood out.
Maybe the Ace is up next.
We love her. All right, thank you so much, Annie Kospel, for us in Chicago. We got more Front Office Sports Today right after this.
Here's a tip. Some machines and online games have higher average payouts than others. Want to try to maximize your odds? Well, do some research online to find games which have the highest RTP or return to player percentage. So now, go get lucky. See you in Lost Pages. Let's get lucky.
Here's the irony with this group. They're going all in a row, 27, 28, 29, and 30 at wide receiver. All of these guys have a huge fantasy upside. They're all being drafted as wide receiver 3s, and I think all of them are going to outperform that ADP. Calvin Ridley could end up as a low-end 1, high-end 2. George Pickens, I think, is going to end up being a solid back-end wide receiver 2 at the end of the day.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
In extras, knocked out the Reds 6-5. This team doesn't lose. And the only thing I want to say, Tom, is I just hope they can continue this. Now, what does that mean? 40 games in a row? Of course we know it's not going to be the case. They are peaking right now. We've seen so many times. Baseball's a long season. Boy, if the Brewers are playing this baseball on September the 28th, watch out. But they are sensational right now.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
If the Golden State Valkyries make the playoffs, and right now at 18 and 17, they're one game ahead of the loss column versus Seattle and the Sparks. If they make the playoffs, you must, and I mean must, give their coach head coach of the year in the WNBA.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today. We're one of the biggest contract holdouts for the NFL offseason, officially over as the Bengals and defensive end Trey Hendrickson finally agreed on a new contract that'll make him one of the highest paid defensive ends in the NFL. This is the deadline for teams to trim their rosters to 53. Gets closer and closer ahead of the NFL kickoff. So let's bring in FOS reporter David Rumsey, who's been watching all of these transactions for us. So David, let's start with Trey Hendrickson. How did this deal finally get done here?
Yeah, it's really been going on all offseason. I mean, since the end of last season, we knew that Trey Hendrickson wanted a new deal, but the Bengals had to pay their two receivers, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, and then, they had the whole situation with their rookie, Shamar Stewart, so they finally got to this. And in the end, he didn't get his long-term deal, but he did get a $14 million raise this season. Still not one of the top 5 highest paid defensive ends in the NFL, but not too bad, making $30 million this season.
Yeah, not bad.
Well, coming into today, one of the big names that's still in the midst of a hold-in, Micah Parsons, has others now clamoring to defend him, including former NFL player Darrelle Revis, who actually took to social media with a statement of himself. He said, players are held accountable, and the NFLPA has to be held accountable as well. And he actually said, quote, Jerry's actions show that owners have no problem taking advantage of us, and when our union fails to respond, it sends a message that they'll be able to do the same in the next CBA negotiations if the current leadership remains in place. What are your thoughts on these comments by Darrelle Revis calling out the NFLPA to step in on Micah Parsons' behalf, but also just to do more, period?
Yeah, a player of Darrelle Revis' caliber certainly has a lot to say, and that he holds a lot of weight. And obviously, he didn't play for the Cowboys, but everybody knows Jerry Jones and maybe had some sort of dealing with him throughout the years. And yeah, this has just been kind of going on all training camp, right? And the situation with Jerry Jones and Micah Parsons' agent just seems to keep getting uglier and uglier, and they just can't figure it out. But I think if you just kind of listen to what the folks in Dallas are saying, the beat reporters, the local reporters that are really plugged in, it seems like everybody thinks something is going to get done before the regular season. It's not just going to be no deal, no Micah on the field. Now, obviously, with each day that we get closer to that opening night against the Eagles on Thursday, in September, it gets more and more risky, right? But I think the general feeling is something gets done.
David, let's talk about some of the other players that were either traded or cut. The big question was, what would the Browns do with their 4 quarterbacks heading into this season? It looks like Kenny Pickett is the odd man out, which Renee was correct on.
Yeah, exactly. Kenny Pickett going to the Raiders, and we still have Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, and it kind of looked like maybe Gabriel had the edge in the preseason by the end of it all. And of course, we have Joe Flacco, who should be leading the team for the season. So yeah, the Browns, what a fascinating story this offseason with so many quarterbacks, drafting 2 of them, but not even planning to start one of them if all goes well. So yeah, we kind of had the quarterback carousel during free agency in March, and now we have this sort of backup quarterback carousel happening right before final cuts.
It is that time to figure out those roster moves. We have talked a lot about hold-ins and their effectiveness. You mentioned Trey Hendrickson gets a $14 million raise. Terry McLaurin also, as well as James Cook, 2 other names that their hold-ins were successful. What are your thoughts now on players' leverage in really being able to maximize getting the deals that they want?
Yeah, I think it's, the players have a lot of leverage, right? We're getting more and more money with the salary cap. But at the end of the day, teams are always going to find a way to spread out that money and kind of lower the day. The teams are going to have to do what's best for them, and the players are just simply there to try to get as much money as they can.
Mm-hmm. All right, FOS reporter David Rumsey watching all of the news for us in the NFL. Thank you, David. And let's see what's bubbling over at the FOS water cooler. Well, Renee, here's a headline you don't see every day. Babe Ruth was indicted earlier this month in a fraud case. No, not that Babe Ruth, but a Tennessee man with the exact same name. This George Herman Ruth faces 91 counts of fraud and money laundering, including allegedly using the names of hundreds of deceased or retired professional baseball players. This to obtain more than $550,000 through fraudulent class action claims. We don't even know the names of the deceased players that he used. What a wild story.
Yeah, it's also wild enough that his parents named him after Babe Ruth, but that's on his parents. Yeah. There are a lot of kids named after pro athletes,
yeah,
but I think do good things if you're named after Babe Ruth. Instead of being someone that is involved, as you mentioned, he's got more than a dozen P.O. boxes in several cities, hundreds of false claims of payouts, and the 91 counts include everything from mail fraud, aggravated identity theft, fraudulent use of social security numbers, money laundering, the list goes on, and he already has a past of prior convictions. So with that $550,000 he's tried to get a hold of. This Babe Ruth is not the Babe at all. And honestly, people are too creative or even big of risk takers for my liking. Because how do you think of this?
What was Babe Ruth's nickname? The Sultan of SWAT? This guy's the Sultan of Stealing or something,
my Lord.
right?
Do better if you're named after a historic figure like that.
So true,
Jeez.
so true.
Poor Babe
All right,
Ruth.
guys. We have a very busy next week for you here on Front Office Sports Today, including A's first baseman Tyler Soderstrom joining us later this week. We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.